Bob with Shoes in Jets Radio. Always great to hear his voice, plus Aaron Glenn on Justin Fields, a 13-yard touchdown run to begin the festivities for the Jets against the Packers last night. They won big over Green Bay. I know it's only the preseason, but I think the Jets fan can use all the positive vibes as humanly possible. Let's go to the hotline, spend a few minutes with one of our favorites. You hear him here on Mad Dog Sports Radio, ESPN Radio in New York. He has a fantastically successful Jets YouTube as well. Our friend Jake Asman giving us a few minutes on a Sunday. Jake, what's going on?
Mike, appreciate you having me on, and you're right. Nice to hear Bob with Shoes and calling a Jets touchdown, which over the last 15 years, as you well know, has been a rarity.
There have not been many. Jake, my take on this, I spent a little time on this earlier, is I know it's the preseason, all the usual caveats apply, sample size, who's out there, all of it. But for the Jets, like the first series or two, offense and defense, that is the exact formula they need to win games in 2025. That was my biggest takeaway. That was the precise formula they need.
I think you're right, Mike. And if you look at who played for the Packers, they played their starters out there, right? So it's not like the Jets were the only team that played their starting offense and starting defense in the game. They dominated the time of possession. We saw Justin Fields do what he obviously is able to do at a very high level, which is use his legs and take off and make plays, and we saw that. I actually was very impressed with the play calling by the Jets. Look, it's one game, one drive. Let's not go crazy with the starters. But Tanner Engstrand's a first-time play caller at the NFL level. He comes over from Detroit with Aaron Glenn, where he was the pass game coordinator under Ben Johnson last season. That's the Jets actually were scheming some guys open. I thought Fields looked comfortable. So it definitely was a positive showing overall. And I thought the defense was pretty good, too. Sauce Gardner, after he got the big contract, the first three plays of the game were pass breakup for Sauce on the opening drive, a 3-and-out against Jordan Love and that Packers offense. So I think if you're a Jet fan, you're grasping for anything that could give you some hope. And for the first game of Aaron Glenn, new coaching staff, I thought it was the right move to play the starters. And I thought the Jets went out there and they looked pretty good. They were physical, and I think you're right, Mike. That's exactly how they want to play, once the regular season comes.
Jake, before the game yesterday, were you someone who cared or put much stock into all the training camp reports? I know you've been out there as well, just about Fields not putting up, big passing numbers in training camp.
They definitely don't want to say it doesn't mean anything, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of factors that we have to take into consideration when it comes to training camp stats. One, typically the defense is ahead of the offense this time of year anyway. Two, Justin Fields is learning his Ford system in the last 5 years. We just talked about the fact that the play caller is a first-time play caller. So I think there was going to be just some natural growing pains there. Three, I think in the case of Fields, his greatness, you don't really get to see it a ton in practice because the quarterback doesn't get hit. And I know for a fact the Jet coaches are telling Fields, hey, stay in there, just go through the progression. Obviously, if it's a regular season game, you can take off and run, but then time to go through the plays so we can get comfortable in the new offense. That's why you practice. That's why it's called practice, obviously. So I think there's that. And plus, I think the Jet defense is really underrated. After they were so disappointing last year, I think a lot of people have just kind of forgotten that this defense does return 8 of its 11 starters. So he's going up against a tough defense in practice every day, too. So I don't think it means nothing, but I also think we got to be a little more patient than freaking out. Oh, Fields is struggling a couple days in a row in practice, and it's, the first week of August.
Jake Asman is my guest on the Weekend Playbook, Mad Dog Sports Radio. What's your realistic win total expectation for this team?
I think best case, they can be 9, maybe 10 if Fields kind of has that breakout season that some think is possible. Like we've seen Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold and Geno Smith prove to be viable starters. I do think the Jets are a team that if you're looking to place a bet, I think their win total at most sportsbooks right now is around 5.5. I think they're a team that could definitely exceed that win total. I think they could be a scrappy 7, maybe 8-win team. I think the perception is that the Jets lost all these players in the offseason. There's no Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. But I think what people leave out is they might have been the worst coach team in the league last year. So if they just get league average coaching, and Nick Folk, who's now going to be their kicker, could just basically be as good as he's been the last couple of years where he's led the NFL in field goal make percentage. That could be the difference right there in a couple extra wins that they didn't have a year ago. Plus the schedule is not that daunting. So I think they're going to win more than what their win total projection is, of 5.5. I don't think they're a playoff team just yet because I'm not completely sold on Justin Fields, and there's some depth questions I have with this Jets team. But I think they could win 6, 7, maybe 8 games, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. And if everything clicks, then you know what? There are surprises in the NFL every year. Maybe this team could be a 9-8 team and kind of battle for one of the wild card spots in the conference.
One last thing on the Jets before we expand the conversation league wide. I can't believe I'm asking this, but are you sure? Like, are we definitive that Nick Folk's going to be the kicker? I thought that the large guy Harrison Mevis also has a shot.
So Mevis, he got the opportunities last night. Folk got the initial PAT, and we saw
Yes.
Harrison Mevis come in and hit some kicks. I'd be very surprised if Folk is not the kicker. I think there's a reason why the Jets signed him. Mevis, the kicks, it went through, which is great, but they didn't exactly look very pretty if the Jets take some stock into that. So I think ultimately Nick Folk is definitely going to be the Jets kicker. I'd be very surprised if he wasn't.
Let's go around the league. Shador Sanders looked good on Friday. I thought Jackson Dart looked promising on Saturday. What were your biggest takeaways from the rookie quarterbacks so far, Shador and Jackson Dart?
But both, as you pointed out, Mike, they both look good. I was impressed with Dart's timing and accuracy in some of the throws that he made yesterday. I thought he moved a lot better than I even realized. I knew he was an athlete, but I thought just kind of watching it against other NFL players, it was better than I was anticipating. So he definitely got off to a good start, which, good for him. And obviously Shador, he played well. I think the hype around Shador and the people trying to do that, I told you so, he's great, and wow, all these teams passed on him. I'd like to remind people that, Zach Wilson's rookie year, his preseason passer rating was like 136. Like, he looked really good. Threw a couple touchdowns, no turnovers. So I think we all got to relax a little bit with the preseason stuff, but that's why we love the NFL, because preseason football gets people going crazy. And, I understand people can't wait to be like, I told you so on any take. So I think we went a little much with the Shador stuff, but it was cool to see him play well. And obviously Dart played well in his start, or his opportunity to get off the bench, I should say, after Russell Wilson started yesterday against the Bills.
Jake, I don't have a great sense with Dart when it comes to like when could he play, because what's interesting about comparing the Browns and the Giants, what the Browns need to figure out is they might need to draft a quarterback next April, so they need to figure out what they have and what they don't have in Shador and Gabriel quickly. The Giants are not in that position. They're not drafting a quarterback, barring something incredibly surprising in 2026. But what they have is a coach and a GM who I think are more on the hot seat than, I'm sure Stefanski and Barry are, but with the Giants, it's kind of an acute situation. And in their case, Jackson Dart has kind of like more staying power. You and I have talked about the brutal schedule the Giants have up until basically like December 8th or 15th. What is your feeling right now about just how long of a leash they're going to give Russell Wilson, because Daboll's on the hot seat and Jackson Dart would seemingly be the easiest path for everybody to keep their jobs?
That is the million-dollar question, right? Because if Jackson Dart is ready to play, I think the sooner you go to him if you fall out of it, the more opportunity for him to find it by the end of the season and at least look like he's clearly improving. And as you point out, and I believe this as well, that might be the best path for Brian Daboll to go to Giants ownership and say, hey, give me another year now that I have my hand-picked quarterback. I need some more time. But the question's going to be when they want to make that move. And I also have questions whether or not, they're going to enter the year with Dart as the number 3 quarterback, or could they look to maybe move Jameis Winston so Dart is at least the backup to Russell Wilson, and he could come in if the Giants are getting blown out in some games and he can get him some reps that way. I'm very fascinated by the dynamics of that quarterback room in general, because when they signed Winston, they couldn't guarantee that they were going to be able to get a quarterback they actually liked in the draft. They took Abdul Carter, of course, with their top 3 pick, and then after that, they then pivoted and they were able to trade back into round 1 to take Dart, but they couldn't have known he'd be there. So they had Winston as the backup to Russ, and if they want Dart to be the primary backup. So that to me is fascinating. But if they fall out of it, I mean, you brought up the schedule. You know how New York works, the Giant fans, they're going to want to see Dart play as soon as possible, especially if he has another couple preseason games here like what he did yesterday where he looked really good.
Yeah, he looked good, and you brought up a good point. Dart is a substantially better athlete than Shador Sanders is. Like, Dart is legitimately fast. Like, if he succeeds in the NFL, part of it is going to be his raw mobility, because he's a legitimately good athlete. One or two more, Jake, real quick. Is the Rashawn Slater injury for the Chargers the kind of one that makes you feel like, okay, whatever the ceiling was for the Chargers in 2025, they can no longer get there because of how big this injury is? Or do you feel like I will give the benefit of the doubt to Harbaugh and Herbert even with a big injury like that?
I definitely think it hurts their ceiling. Do I think that they're automatically now not going to be a playoff team? I won't go that far. They do have Joe Alt. I have not heard if Harbaugh has confirmed that their plan would be to move him from right tackle to left tackle, but they certainly have that chip they could play. Look, it's a big blow, though. Obviously, they gave him a huge contract, and for him to go down with that type of injury, you hate to see that. But I think because they are so well coached and they do have the quarterback, we have seen teams be able to overcome devastating injuries like that. It's just going to take a collective effort, and I do think you're going to see Joe Alt probably move over to the left side if they haven't said that publicly.
Last thing real quick, I know that they have a rally that might be, going here in the bottom of the 7th. If the Astros beat the Yankees again, what is the reaction in New York today and tomorrow after this weekend series?
Mike, it's going to be more of the same. I mean, it's been mind-boggling to watch how the Yankees have continued to fall apart all summer, and nothing seems to really change. There's been no one fired. There's been really nothing that has been noticeably different. I mean, Aaron Boone continues to go to Devin Williams, a high-level response. We saw how that worked again on Friday. I mean, he's cost them in the last week. You can make the case he's cost them 3 wins just in the last week, and this is a Yankees team that for about a 2-month stretch now has been one of the worst teams in baseball. They have the second worst record in the American League since June. I mean, it's just
crazy.
It's not even surprising anymore, and nothing seems to change. They don't. Hal Steinbrenner is certainly not his father, because if his father was still owning the team, Aaron Boone wouldn't have a job. And it's not even all on Boone, but I just think at some point the only card you could play is a new voice and try and make a change. And they haven't done that. So I don't know if anything changes other than the Yankees lose another series, and they got the Twins coming up, and see if they can go on a run against them. But, I mean, any Yankee fan who tells you that they still have any faith in this team doing anything after they were in the World Series last year is just straight up lying to you.
Jake Asman, ESPN Radio New York. He has a great Jets YouTube channel as well. You hear him here on Mad Dog Sports Radio. Jake, thank you for a few minutes on this Sunday. I appreciate it.
Mike, anytime. Just so you know, I'm on the Long Island Railroad right now getting a ton of looks from people. So I did this because I love you. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Now I feel awkward that I kept asking Jake these questions as he's in the middle of, he's basically the equivalent of the guy who's doesn't have the headphones and he's watching loud videos, except in his case he's actually saying the things. So but he gave us good insight on the Jets, the formula, and we went around the league with Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart with their impressive debuts as well.